Okay. It is recording. I know I've sent it a couple of times. Does anybody need me to send it to you right now? Does anybody not have it in front of you? Okay, is that all of you need it? Ishan, Sai, and Sashank, you all need me to send it, correct? Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, next time when you come to an advanced class, see if you can do that. That'll take some time. Okay, give me 1 second. Sai Coley, what's your email?
Should I put in the chat?
Please. Okay, if all three of you can go ahead and put it in the chat, that would be great. So I don't have to look it up while I'm putting these in here. Okay? That will expedite the process. Okay. Okay, I've got Sashank. Ishan. Okay, that's what I thought it was, Ishan. Okay, I think the only one I don't have is Sai. Okay, that's what it is. I got it. Okay. Okay, gentlemen, I'm sending it right now. Just give me a thumbs up once you receive it. Okay? Give me a thumbs up. And I'm going to go grab my copy. Okay? Okay. All right, we got it? Okay. Okay, so this was after we talked about Little Io, the Greek myth and the Roman myth. And I remember I told you, gentlemen, that Romans myths were kind of stolen. They kind of stole Greek myths and they put their own little spin on it. This story is my favorite story. Probably my favorite story in all Roman mythology because it's an origin story. Does anybody remember what an origin story is?
It means like the start, like the beginning of something.
Yeah. Remember when we did Arachne and Athena, right? And we know that's a myth. We know it's a story. But, you know, the first spider came out of arrogance, out of prideful behavior, and it was a punishment from the god Athena. That's an origin story, much like Peter Parker being bit by a radioactive spider. Well, today's origin story kind of makes sense, gentlemen. So I'm going to start with the story today. Is that okay? Jupiter and the bee. Okay. Don't love the beginning. It starts with the problem. I wish it had a different beginning, and we'll talk about that. But the rest of the story is perfection. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there lived a little bee who was getting very tired of having animals and people steal his honey. He wished and prayed, but the gods did not grant his request. One day, he decided to ask Jupiter, king of all the gods, for help. He would have asked a lesser god, but Jupiter was the only god he knew how to find. The little bee flew up to the heavens and buzzed until he caught Jupiter's attention. "My king," he buzzed, "I have brought you a gift of honey." One taste, and Jupiter's face lit with delight. "What a wonderful gift," Jupiter smiled. "What can I do for you, little bee?" Quivering with fear, but determined to try, the bee explained his problem. Mused Jupiter, which sounded very wise. Actually, he had no idea what he could do to help. Such a delicious taste was sure to be popular. In fact, he would very much like more of the honey himself. "I was thinking," the little bee buzzed nervously, "I could guard my honey myself if I had a weapon. Something like a stinger?" Jupiter's face grew angry. "You would sting the gods. You would sting me?" "Oh no," cried the little bee. He jerked back in alarm. He nearly squashed himself flat when he rammed into Juno, queen of all the gods, who was listening nearby. Jupiter offered his wife a taste of honey. "Such a wonderful taste needs protection," Juno agreed. "I suggest you give every bee a stinger. Of course, there must be a payment." "I know. Any bee who uses your gift must pay for it with their life. That way, each bee has a choice. protect and die, or share? Oh no, cried the little bee, but Jupiter was already nodding. As always, love, a brilliant idea. Jupiter would do just about anything to keep Juno happy. This was such a small request compared to most. With a wave of his hand, it was done. There you go, little bee. Your wish is granted. Thank you, mighty Jupiter. Thank you, my queen, the little bee gasped, trying without much success to sound grateful for his gift. He flew quickly away, then sunk back to earth. For nearly 2 days, he hid behind his beehive, hoping the other bees would ignore him forever. He knew they would not be happy with him when they heard the news. It was quite noisy at home. All the bees were buzzing about, showing off their new stingers. No one noticed him at first, hiding behind his beehive. But finally, a swarm encircled him. A loud buzzing erupted when he told them what he had done. But bees are loyal. They knew he had tried to help. As their queen pointed out, they did have a choice, which was something to be grateful for. Besides, perhaps this gift would not last. Some gifts the gods gave disappeared after a while. Sadly, this gift didn't go away. Even today, any bee who uses his stinger has to pay with his life. Okay, remember I said it was an origin story, right? Okay. What that means, gentlemen, is whoever wrote this story had to know a lot about bees, didn't they? Okay, I'm trying to find my copy here real quick. 1 second. Okay, yeah. Apologize for that. Looking at my copy. So I want you to scroll to the very bottom of your document. And I want to look up, is this true? If a bee uses their stinger, do they die? Do y'all know the answer? So I looked it up. It's partially true. Not all bees who sting you will die, because only female bees have stingers. Did y'all know that? And it's only the honeybee who dies after stinging you. So there is some truth to it. So only female bees of all types will sting, because only female bees have stingers. So that's a variation. So it's not like a true origin story, but it's a cute story. I want to preface this by telling you, it's really gross what happens. Okay, so say this is your skin. The bee stings you and its stinger goes in, right? And it releases toxins when it tries to pull out, but it has these hooks that hook into your skin, which pull out their digestive tract, their nerves, their muscles. They basically are disemboweled. Their body is split in half, which I don't really feel bad about bees because I don't want to be stung by one. But I want you to be clear, hornets and wasps will not die if they sting you. They will sting you over and over and over and over again. So I just really wanted to make sure you knew that it wasn't true for everything, but it is fascinating that there was some truth to this story, correct? Had y'all ever heard this story before today? Really? This is like my favorite one. I've done this one a couple of times. Okay, so I want you to go to the first page and we're gonna break it down. And I'm gonna ask you some questions and see if you were paying attention. Sound good? So Roman myths contain many stories about Jupiter because he's the head god. He's the king of all gods. He has extraordinary power, and he, unlike Zeus in Greek mythology, he was really willing to help animals and people, and they came to him for advice. So what the bee did in this story was not unusual in Roman mythology stories. So the bee has a problem, gentlemen. So here's what I wish was different about this story. What I wish was different, if I were to do this story again, I would have an introduction, something like, the bee is working all day, he's producing honey, he's slaving away, and then somebody comes in and steals it. And he buzzes around trying to get them to stop, and they just swat at him like a fly because he can't hurt them. And that's where he gets the idea of a stinger. See, I think that would be a cute introduction instead of, they're stealing my honey, I'm upset about it, right? So the story really begins with a frustrated bee who's having his honey stolen by animals and people. He wishes and prays, but nothing changes. Okay, so here's what I love about this story. He takes matters into his own hands, doesn't he? He seeks out the counsel of the most powerful god he knew, who was the head god, the king of all gods, Jupiter. Was he nervous? Was he scared? Of course he was. Right. Okay, so gentlemen, don't you think a stinger is kind of harsh? Okay, think about size-wise. A stinger for him would be like you and me asking for a sword. I mean, it's a pretty ruthless weapon, don't you think, that he's asking for? I mean, if you think about it in the terms of how little he is. But I get it. I get why it's a stinger, because it's the only thing he can do. He's got to hurt them to keep them away from his honey. So what does he do? He offers them a taste of the honey. Genius, right? Give him a little bribe them. And what does Jupiter do once he tastes the honey?
He tastes it and then says it's really good. And then
And
he
deserving of protection, yes?
Yeah.
Does he know what to do? Not really. So the bee says, well, I got an idea, right? How about a stinger? Okay, what was Jupiter's reaction to the stinger, Ishan Maji? What was his reaction?
At first I don't think he wanted that. And
He was
Juno came.
appalled. You would sting me?
Yeah.
Like he was almost like offended, right? Okay, so here's the point in the story that's really interesting. Who's been eavesdropping on this conversation? Who's been listening the whole time?
Juno.
Is this her first time to give him advice?
No.
How do we know that? Where in the story does it tell us that this is not the first time? Can you find that for me? Where? It's on page 2. It's at the top of page 2. Where in the story do we find out that Jupiter has taken his wife's advice before? Top of page 2. Second page of the story.
It says that Jupiter would do anything, just about anything, to keep Juno happy.
Okay, before that, Sashank, what did he say before that?
I think he said that, as always, my love. So I think that means
As always, my love, a brilliant idea. Like she's done it before, right? I think that's so cool in this story. And what's even cooler is he listened to her, right? Okay, what was her advice? Sai, what was her advice?
Her advice was to, like, instead of giving just a stinger to that one bee, give it to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And either die protecting or
But it
share.
came with a cost, right? She's like, it deserves protection. I'm gonna give every bee a stinger and it will come with a price. Yes? And what was the price, Sai? You were saying it.
Death.
Go ahead.
Like,
Death. You're right.
Yeah.
Did they have to die?
No, they had a choice.
Use your stinger, die. Don't use it, and share, live, right? Real simple to her. How does the bee take it? Wait, no, right? Was not quite what I had in mind. Okay, but hypothetically here, didn't he get what he wanted? Okay, so this is where, gentlemen, if you go to page 1 at the bottom of the page, we're going to talk about the lessons from this myth. And there were a couple, and I want you to tell me which one you think is the predominant one. Perhaps the little bee should have been grateful for what he already had. Okay, well, yeah. It's possible the little bee didn't want to share. Gentlemen, have you ever gotten a great gift and you didn't want to share it? Right? I mean, we've all done that, right? You finally get something, it's brand new, and you don't want to share it. We all understand that. Be careful what one wishes for. It may not be what we thought it would be. Have you ever had that happen to you, gentlemen, where you wished and wished and you finally wanted, begged your parents for something, you finally get it? I don't know, maybe it's a guitar. And then you get the guitar and you're like, this is harder than I thought. Yeah, I don't want to do this, right? Have you ever done that? Asked for an activity, asked for something, and then you get it and it's not quite what you thought it was going to be. Well, that's just kind of a life lesson. That happens to all of us too. Loyalty is important when someone tries to do the right thing, even if it backfires, because understanding the motive matters. Did he have good intentions when he went to Jupiter? He did. His good intention was to protect the honey. Okay, so we're going to go through the story elements page. Who is the main character in the story?
The little
Little
bee.
bee.
Yeah,
Yep.
that'll be-
Little bee. Who else?
Jupiter.
Jupiter.
Jupiter, a little bit of Juno. Really, the bee was the main character. Why didn't he have a name? Right? I kind of wished he'd had a name too. I like my characters to have names. Then we have a brief minor characters, the queen and the other bees. We're going to assume this is in the heavens. It's also on Earth because the beehive is on Earth. We assume it's a long time ago. So the little bee was granted his wish to have a weapon to stop animals and people from taking his honey, but this came at a price. The bee has a stinger to stop honey from being stolen, but if the bee stings someone, they die. And this is because Jupiter's wife, a woman of reason, just did not want to give him a gift. She wanted to give all the bees a gift, a stinger. But there was a cost, a payment for such protection from the gods, which means when someone uses their stinger, they die. If someone doesn't, they live. So the setup, introduction of the story, the plot arc, this is going to be really important, so pay attention. Because, gentlemen, I'm giving you the answer. Listen carefully. Okay. Right. So when I wrote the plot arc, it's already in logical, chronological order. It's already in the event that they happen in the story. So a little bee is frustrated with trying to stop thieves from stealing honey. He longs for a weapon to fight off thieves. He wishes and prays, but nothing changes. Do you agree? That's the introduction. And the problem is the introduction. We do have another problem later in the story when every bee is given a stinger, but the main problem is right away. Okay, the rising action, the bee flies up to Jupiter, believing he can help him solve his honey problem because he is the king of all gods. He buzzes until Jupiter notices him, bribes him by offering a taste of honey, and the king offers to help the bee, but doesn't quite know how to solve the problem, and the bee suggests that Jupiter give him a stinger. Unfortunately, this request backfires. Jupiter is angry the bee would want to sting him. The climax, the turning point in the story, when everything changes, is when Juno enters the picture. Can you all agree with me? When the wife enters the picture. When she enters the scene, she's listening nearby. Did you get the sense, gentlemen, she's done this before? She's eavesdropped before? We wives tend to do that sometimes. Husbands too. Once Juno tastes the delicious honey, she too says, it's delicious. It needs protection. However, her advice says there should be payment for protection. She suggests every bee be given a stinger, and then she explains her reasoning. They have a choice to protect the honey and die or share the honey and live. And she thinks that's fair. So the following action, we know that once Jupiter agrees, it's a done deal. He waves his hand. It's so quick. The bee is like, oh, I gotta wait. So now every bee has a stinger, and thinking the bee would be happy, Jupiter and Juno are unaware that the bee is frightened. He flies back to Earth and hid behind his beehive. Does anybody remember how many days? Put
It
your
was
fingers
2
up if
days.
you remember. How many days? Correct. It's 2 days. That's a long time. What would have happened if one of those bees used their stingers in those 2 days, right? They would have found out, right? So they finally seek him out, swarm around him, and he has to come clean. He tells them. And they, being loyal bees, forgive him. And the queen being wonderful, says we should be grateful that we have a choice. So the bees, the resolution here, they're surprised by the bad news about their stinger. They didn't just get it for free, but they are grateful that they have a choice. So even today, any bee who has a stinger and uses it must pay with the price of their life. And we know that that's not exactly true. It's a honeybee and only females. Okay, go to this page. This is your assignment. Okay, so this seems like, gentlemen, the easiest assignment of the month, right? It's not. Listen carefully. So when you fold a paper in half, okay, that's half a page. So you'll notice this down here is half a page. Do y'all see that? Okay, single spaced, Times New Roman, 12-point font. Your summary of this story, this highlight of a page and a half, must be no more and no less than 1/2 of a page. Now, you look at this at the bottom, you get to put your name and date in a title. So your summary must go to this middle line. It cannot be shorter than that. It cannot be longer than that either. Right? What that means is you have to be really careful and precise with your language, okay? You must condense and highlight the most relevant points of the story, the who, what, where, when, why, and how. Did I give that to you just now? I did. I'm so nice. It must include the title of the story, the author, if there is one, and there isn't, and the central idea of the piece. And I'm going to give you that in the topic sentence. So look at the example summary at the bottom right here. And note, this is from my adult perspective. So no, I don't expect yours to sound like me. But I do want you to use the first sentence. The Roman myth, Jupiter and the Bee, shows the central idea of the story as a warning to be careful what one wishes for, as it may not end the way one thinks it will. Gentlemen, do you agree that was the message of the story? Okay, good, thank you. It is not supposed to be as long as the original piece. Of course not. That's not what a summary is. But neither is it supposed to be super short either. Your job is to write a summary in your own words as concisely as possible. Make sure the ideas are told in logical, chronological order. Write the summary including all the basic ideas and story elements of the original, but in a condensed form. Listen carefully. At the end of the summary, shed light on the meaning of the story, the theme. Do not copy me word for word from class notes. Do not copy me word for word from my own summary. I want this from your perspective. Okay, so at the end of the story, this is what you should do in any conclusion. What was the meaning? What was the purpose? What's the lesson to be learned? Well, we know the bees had to pay a price for the gift that they received. Does this have a real life application today? When you're given a gift, gentlemen, do you have to reciprocate? Do you have to return the favor sometimes? Yeah. I mean, if somebody gives you a gift, you feel funny if you don't have one to give them in return, right? What if somebody told you it was free? What would you say? I'm going to give you this gift for free. I would tell you to run, because when somebody tells you for free, that's a trap, right? So usually that's kind of the lesson here. Be careful, right? People that tell you that they're going to give you a deal. You know, we're doing a lot of Black Friday deals and Cyber Monday deals, and even today, Cyber Monday extended. And what they do, gentlemen, is they do like buy one, get one free, 30% off. Do you know why they do that? They give you money off, right? And sometimes they will actually raise the price before they do that. But usually what happens, and they know this from a marketing standpoint, if they give you a coupon, you're likely to spend more than just that one item. So it's a trap, right? Their little gift, not so free, is it? Right? Any questions about what you're going to do today? It's one paragraph. I want to warn you, okay? I want to warn you. So just listen to me carefully. Follow the directions. Single space, Times New Roman, 12-point font, no more, no less than half a page. Be precise with your language. So don't repeat anything, okay? Don't use first person, don't use second person, use third person, and use mine as a guide. So let me just, I have a couple of minutes left, so let me just read mine to you. The story begins. Notice the transition. With a little bee, tired of having animals and people take his honey. Desperate for Jupiter's help, the bee came up with a solution to ask for help. Seeking the highest authority, the bee sought out Jupiter because in his mind, the bee figured he needed a weapon to fend off thieves. Using the honey as a bribe, he carried the honey to Jupiter. The bee buzzed for some time to catch Jupiter's attention, then proceeded to give him a taste of the deliciously sweet honey. When Jupiter was clearly pleased, this was when the bee asked for help in the form of a stinger. At first angered, Jupiter soon calmed down when his wife Juno interrupted the discussion. After Juno tasted the honey, she too agreed the little bee needed a weapon. Juno suggested all bees be given a stinger, but she also explained there also must be a payment for that protection. Juno explained if a bee uses their stinger to protect the honey, they die. If the bee chooses not to sting anyone, they live. That's really important. Make sure you put that, what the condition is. After he returns to Earth, the little bee is horrified and hides from the other bees for 2 days, believing they will be upset with him. To his surprise, the other bees were loyal, knowing he had good intentions when he went to see Jupiter. In the end, even the queen sees the silver lining to the problem, explaining they should all be grateful. They even have a choice at all. The end of the story shows how even today, when honeybees use their stingers, they die. The lesson to be learned from this myth. Okay, got it? All right. Any questions before I have you log off?
Yeah, I just have a quick question.
Okay,
Did you say
that one more time.
we that we had to highlight all like the when, where, what, and why, and how?
Well, I already gave you the answers. All you have to do, Sai, Sashang, Ishan, is put it in your own words. That's it. I
Wait, so-
literally gave you the answers. That's what you're scared of. You're like, oh my gosh, she gave me the answers. What do I do? You use what I gave you, but you don't use my words. You put it in your words. Got it?
And do we like actually use a highlighter to hide the highlight?
No. Like, okay, let me show you. Like the ones that were turned in. These are the ones turned in. Are they, do
Wait.
they meet the criteria?
Yeah.
Okay,
So like the name and the date count as part of the half the paper.
correct. So you'll look at this one. They went over it, didn't they? Actually, this is not single spaced. They didn't follow directions. This is not single spaced either. Yeah, make sure you're following the directions. I caught a lot of people not doing that. You have more room than you think you do because I allowed you to single space. Okay. All right, gentlemen, you're good to go. I'm going to stop the recording.